In the Orion Arm, the doomed screams of a billion voices cried out as Norcadian death beams scorched human worlds. Only one flicker of hope remained. New Hope Colony, once a backwater outpost, now humanity's last bastion. But the Norcadian Armada had new hope in its sights, ready to snuff out mankind's guttering flame forever. Admiral Austin Williams, the legendary commander blamed for a catastrophic defeat, saw one desperate chance for redemption. He assembled a ragtag crew of misfits on a suicidal quest to strike the enemy's heart. Talon, the Norcadian defector, haunted by terrible secrets. Ace Vickers, the cocky ace concealing his alien heritage. Sergeant Jax Ironside, the grizzled Marine with a tragic past. And the inscrutable android Axiom, a wild card that could save or doom them all. They would plunge headlong into danger, storming fortified Norcadian bases, braving treacherous asteroid fields swarming with enemy patrols, and probing the eerie ruins of the Forbidden Sector. Each perilous trial threatened to shatter their fragile alliance, forcing them to confront inner demons and forge bonds of blood. But as they raced against time, they uncovered an insidious plot twisting the looming war. Hints of puppet masters in the shadows, manipulating both sides like pawns on a galactic board. Ancient secrets on dead worlds pointed to the Norcadians' shrouded past, and a truth that could shatter the foundations of the galaxy. Williams and his crew were humanity's final hope, the dying light of human defiance arrayed against the infinite dark. In that cold void between the stars, they would discover if mankind's indomitable spirit could still shine bright, or be extinguished forever beneath the Norcadian onslaught. The fate of their species hung by a thread. The doomsday clock ticked towards 0 hour. As the stealth vessel Nighthawk knifed through the obsidian void, Admiral Williams studied the holographic display of their target, Norcadian Outpost Zeta 9, a fortified garrison perched precariously on a jagged asteroid. Swarms of smaller rocks tumbled around it like deadly shrapnel, natural camouflage concealing banks of pulse cannons and missile batteries that bristled from the outpost's hull. Williams turned to his crew, assembled in the dimly lit hold. Intel says those access codes are stored in the central mainframe. We crack that database, we've got our ticket past the Armada. Ace Vickers flashed a cocky grin. Child's play, Admiral. I'll duck and weave through those rocks like a gecko in a gravel pit. Sergeant Ironside racked the charging handle on his plasma rifle. With respect, sir, I've got a better idea. We use the asteroids as cover for a surprise assault. Catch 'em with their britches down. Williams considered for a moment, then nodded. It's risky, but it's our best shot. Vickers, think you can handle it? The pilot smirked. Does a Zorgax shit in hyperspace? A stern look from Williams cut him off. As the Nighthawk plunged into the chaotic asteroid field, Williams felt an icy tendril of doubt in his gut. Every instinct screamed this was a trap, but what choice did they have? He pushed the thought aside and focused on the mission. There would be time for second-guessing if they survived. The ship jinked and juked as Vickers hurled it through the maelstrom of whirling rocks. Proximity alarms shrieked, the hull groaning under the strain of high-G maneuvers. On the weapons console, Ironside and Axiom linked targeting systems, servos whirring as the android clamped its hands onto the firing controls. They burst from behind a house-sized asteroid with guns blazing. Lances of plasma fire slammed into the outpost's hull, chewing through armor and turning defense turrets to slag. For a heartbeat, it seemed their gambit was working. Then in a flash of crimson light, a dozen more turrets emerged from concealed emplacements and opened up on the attackers. The Nighthawk shuddered as graviton shells pummeled its flickering shields. Vickers gritted his teeth, pouring every ounce of skill into his evasive maneuvers. But even his preternatural reflexes couldn't dodge the barrage entirely. Warning indicators flashed red as armor integrity dwindled. And then, without warning, another threat emerged, but not one of metal and fire. It was a voice slithering into their minds, cold and cruel as frozen venom. Pitiful creatures, it hissed. You dare to challenge the might of the Norcadian ascendancy? Your feeble wills shall crumble before my psychic power. One by one, the crew began to buckle, hands clutching skulls, screams tearing from throats. The onslaught tunneled into their brains like white-hot needles, seeking to shred their sanity. Only Talon remained standing, eyes shut, lips moving in a silent mantra. "It's Zara," he said, voice strained. "I can resist her, but you're defenseless." "Then take that Bruja down," Ironside snarled through clenched teeth. Talon locked eyes with Williams. "Get those codes, Admiral. I'll deal with the witch." The defector sprinted for the airlock, mental walls barely holding against the unrelenting psychic barrage. As Talon vanished into the outpost bowels, Williams hauled himself back to his feet, head still pounding. They had to finish this now, or they were all dead. "Axiom, lock down that data. Vickers, Ironside, cover him." The words were ash in his mouth, but the crew obeyed. The android interfaced with the outpost systems, quicksilver fingers dancing across the control console. Vickers and Ironside burned through the last of their ammo, buying precious seconds. Bullets pinged off Axiom's armor as it worked, the android unfazed by the firestorm. With a final triumphant ping, it ejected a data slug from the mainframe. "Access code secured, Admiral." "Go!" Williams roared. "Back to the ship!" They pounded down the smoldering corridors, a tide of Norcadian troopers surging behind them. Pulse rounds stitched the walls as the enemy closed in. At the airlock, Vickers and Axiom rushed aboard, but Ironside lagged behind, leg torn open by a ricocheting shot. He stumbled and went down, blood pooling beneath him. "Sarge!" Williams screamed. Ironside looked up, face twisted in pain. With his last ounce of strength, he primed a plasma grenade and hurled himself at the oncoming troopers. The explosion shook the outpost to its core. Numb, Williams staggered aboard the Nighthawk. As the ship peeled away, Talon limped through the airlock, blood trickling from his nose and ears. Behind him, the burning outpost receded into the uncaring black. In the sudden stillness, the crew looked to Williams. Ironside was gone. The Norcadian threat seemed more dire than ever. And now this new horror, Zara, added a chilling dimension to an already impossible war. Williams felt the weight of it all threatening to crush him, but he pushed it down. They had the codes, they had a chance, however slim, and he'd be damned if he let Sergeant Ironside's sacrifice be in vain. He met the bleak gazes of his battered team. "We hurt them today. We'll hurt them again tomorrow, and we'll keep hurting them until they break." His voice carried like steel across the hold. "This war ain't over, not while one human still draws breath. Now let's go show those Norcadian bastards what it means to fight humanity." The Nighthawk knifed into the void once more, a mote of defiance hurtling toward its next trial. And though darkness pressed in on all sides, the embers of hope still flickered in the hearts of the desperate and the few. The Nighthawk's engines thrummed as it sliced through the inky void, leaving behind the smoldering ruins of Outpost Zeta 9. In the cramped bridge, Admiral Williams studied the holographic star chart, his face a mask of unyielding commitment. "Set course for the Zephyrus Nebula," he ordered, his voice low but steady. Ace Vickers raised an eyebrow. "The Zephyrus? That's suicide, sir. The place is a gravitational minefield." Talon stepped forward, his eyes haunted. "It's our only option. There's an abandoned Norcadian station hidden in its depths. If we can reach it, we might find the edge we need." Williams nodded. "Plot the course, Ace. We're out of alternatives." As the Nighthawk approached the nebula's swirling, iridescent clouds, alarms blared. The ship shuddered, caught in an unseen gravitational current. "We're off course," Ace shouted, his hands dancing across the controls. "This pull is too strong." Axiom's eyes glowed as it interfaced with the ship's systems. "Calculating optimal trajectory. Transmitting coordinates now." Ace's heart made as he fought the controls. "Hold on to something." The Nighthawk plunged deeper into the nebula, cosmic storms lashing its hull. For agonizing minutes, they were at the mercy of the maelstrom. Then, with a final gut-wrenching lurch, they broke free into a pocket of calm space. Before them loomed a massive structure, all angular lines and alien geometry, the Norcadian station. "Life support active," Axiom reported. "Power core operational." Williams leaned forward. "Any signs of—" A crackling signal cut through the comm static. A voice, weak but unmistakable. "Help! Please!" The crew exchanged wary glances. "It could be a trap," Talon warned. Williams's eyes hardened. "Or it could be our only shot at answers. Suit up. We're going in." They docked with practiced precision, boarding the station with weapons raised. Stale air hissed as the airlock cycled. They moved through silent corridors, following the ping of the distress beacon. In a makeshift infirmary, they found her, a Norcadian female, unconscious in a stasis pod. Talon's breath caught. "I know her," he whispered. "She's with the Resistance." They revived her carefully. Her eyes fluttered open, focusing on Talon. "You," she croaked. "You're alive." "I am, Zara," Talon replied. "What happened here?" Zara struggled to sit up. "The Ixion directive," she said, her voice gaining strength. "They're not just invading New Hope. They're after something buried there, something that could destroy everything." She told them of the Cabal's plans, of the weapon on Erebus, of the bargain she offered, help in exchange for the access codes they desperately needed. Williams paced, weighing their options. If what she says is true... "We can't ignore this," Talon insisted. "But can we trust her?" Ace snorted. "Can we afford not to?" The Admiral's gaze swept over his battered crew. So much had been lost already. And now, a choice that could alter the course of the war, of history itself. "We'll help you," Williams said to Zara, his voice firm. "But this had better not be a ploy. The lives of millions are at stake." Zara nodded solemnly. "Then we have no time to waste. Erebus awaits." As they helped her to her feet, klaxons suddenly blared throughout the station. Axiom's eyes flickered rapidly. "Alert," the android intoned. "Multiple Norcadian signatures detected on an intercept course. Estimated time of arrival, 17 minutes. Williams's eyes sharp. "Looks like our window just got a lot smaller. Move out, people. We've got a war to win." They raced back to the Nighthawk, the promise of salvation and the threat of annihilation nipping at their heels in equal measure. The Nighthawk's engines screamed as Ace pushed them to their limits, weaving through the debris field left by the station's destruction. Proximity alarms blared as Norcadian fighters closed in. "We can't outrun them," Ace gritted through clenched teeth. Williams's eyes darted across the tactical display. "We don't need to. Set course for Rigelier 4. Talon's head snapped up. "The mining colony? That's Zari's territory." "Exactly," Williams nodded. "If we're going to hit Erebus, we need firepower, and there's no one with more guns for hire than Zari's." The ship shuddered as a glancing blow struck their aft shields. Axiom's fingers danced across the weapons console, returning fire with surgical precision. "Executing evasive pattern delta," the android intoned. "Probability of successful escape, 37.2%. Williams gripped the command chair. "Make it happen." The Nighthawk plunged into the swirling gases of a nearby nebula, using the cosmic storm as cover. When they emerged on the other side, the Norcadian pursuit had been shaken. Days later, they approached Rigelier 4. The planet's surface was a patchwork of strip mines and refineries, its orbit cluttered with ore haulers and defense platforms. "I'm picking up a transmission," Zara said, her pallid features illuminated by the comm display. "It's Zari's. She's expecting us." The crew exchanged uneasy glances as the Nighthawk was guided to a sprawling, fortified compound. Armed guards, a motley assortment of alien species, escorted them to a cavernous war room. Zaris lounged on a makeshift throne of welded scrap metal. The Crixan female's scaled hide bore a roadmap of scars, her 4 eyes glinting with cold calculation. "The famous Admiral Williams," she purred, mandibles clicking. "Come to beg for my help, no doubt." Williams met her gaze unflinchingly. "We have a proposition, one that could change the course of this war." He laid out their plan, detailing the Ixion directive and the stakes involved. Zaris listened impassively, her expression unreadable. When he finished, she leaned forward. "And what's in it for me?" "Besides saving the galaxy?" Ace muttered under his breath. Williams shot him a warning glance before turning back to Zaris. "Full pardons for you and your crew, plus salvage rights to any Norcadian tech we encounter. Xeris's laugh was like grinding metal. You think that's enough? I could retire on the bounty the Norcadians have on your head alone. Then name your price, Williams said, his voice steady. The Crixen's eyes narrowed. Triple your offer, and I want unrestricted access to any data we recover on Erebus. Williams hesitated for a fraction of a second before nodding. Done? Xaris's mandibles spread in what passed for a Crixen smile. Then let's go raise some hell. The next hours were a whirlwind of activity. Xeris's mercenaries, a diverse collection of outcasts and rogues, loaded cutting-edge weaponry and explosives onto their frigate. The ship dwarfed the Nighthawk, its hull dripping with gun emplacements. As final preparations were made, Zara pulled Williams aside. Are you sure about this? She whispered. Xaris isn't known for her loyalty. No, Williams admitted, but right now she's our best shot at stopping the Ixion directive. The journey to Erebus was tense, punctuated by near misses with Norcadian patrols. When they finally reached the planet, its surface was a nightmarish landscape of jagged mountains and sulfurous plains. There, Zara pointed to a tactical overlay. The research base is hidden beneath that ridge. Xeris bared her teeth in a predatory grin. Then let's knock on their door. The frigate's guns roared to life, pounding the planet's surface. As chunks of rock and metal were blasted away, a yawning chasm was revealed, the entrance to the underground complex. Breaching teams, move in, Xaris barked. What followed was a brutal firefight through twisting corridors and vast chambers filled with arcane machinery. Axiom moved with lethal grace, his combat protocols fully engaged for the first time. Plasma bolts and explosive rounds tore through the air as they pushed deeper into the facility. In a cavernous data center, they found what they were looking for. Williams's eyes widened as he scanned the screens. My God, he breathed. The chaos particle. If they weaponize this... A deafening explosion rocked the complex. Alarms blared as the facility began to shake itself apart. We need to move, Ace shouted. This whole place is coming down. They fought their way back towards the surface, Norcadian defenders pressing in from all sides. As they neared the exit, a section of ceiling collapsed, cutting off their escape route. This way, Talon called, gesturing towards a side passage. There's another way out. The others raced after him, but Williams noticed Zara lagging behind, clutching her side where a stray shot had grazed her. He turned back, hauling her to her feet. Leave me, she gasped. I'll only slow you down. Williams shook his head. Not a chance. We're all getting out of here. They emerged into the harsh Erebus daylight just as another explosion tore through the base. Williams's heart sank as he saw the burning wreckage of their ship strewn across the compound. We're trapped, Ace said, his usual bravado faltering. A distant roar made them look up. Xeris's frigate descended through the acrid smoke, its cargo bay open. Consider this the last of my charity, the Crixen's voice crackled over the comms. Now get your asses on board before I change my mind. As they scrambled towards the hovering ship, Williams realized Talon wasn't with them. He turned to see the former Norcadian standing at the edge of the chasm, a determined look in his eyes. Talon, Williams shouted, what are you doing? Talon smiled sadly. What I should have done long ago, making things right. Before anyone could stop him, Talon leapt back into the collapsing base. Moments later, a blinding flash erupted from the depths, followed by a shockwave that sent them all sprawling. As the dust settled, Williams helped a dazed Zara to her feet. They stared at the smoldering crater where Talon had made his final stand. Aboard Xaris's ship, a somber silence fell over the crew. They had the intel they needed, but at a terrible cost. And as they left Erebus behind, Williams knew their greatest challenge still lay ahead. The smoldering ruins of Erebus faded into the distance as Xaris's frigate sliced through the void. In the ship's crowded war room, Admiral Williams hunched over a holotable, his face etched with unshakable focus as he swiped through the stolen data. It's worse than we thought, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The Ixion directive isn't just an invasion force. They're after something called chaos particles on New Hope. Zara limped to his side, her eyes widening as she scanned the projections. "By the void," she breathed. "If they harness that power, they'll have a weapon capable of wiping out all life in the sector," Williams finished. Ace pounded his fist on the table. "So what's the play, Admiral? We can't exactly waltz up to New Hope with the entire Norcadian fleet between us and the planet." Williams's eyes narrowed as he manipulated the tactical display. "We don't need to, not yet. Their flagship is the key. If we can cripple it, we buy ourselves a window to regroup and defend New Hope." Zaris chittered, mandibles clicking in what might have been amusement. "And how do you propose we get close enough to do that?" A ghost of a smile played at Williams's lips as he held up a data crystal. "With these, Talon's final gift to us, access codes straight from the heart of Ixion Command." The next hours were a frenzy of preparation. Axiom interfaced directly with the ship's systems, running simulations of their approach vector. Ace and a team of Zaris's most skilled sappers prepped demo charges, their movements precise and practiced. As they neared the Norcadian fleet's position, an oppressive silence fell over the bridge. The massive alien vessels loomed against the star-studded backdrop, weapons jam-packed along their angular hulls. "Transmitting access codes," Axiom intoned, his synthetic voice unnaturally calm. Seconds stretched into eternity as they waited for a response. Then, miraculously, the sea of enemy ships parted. "We're through," Ace whispered, disbelief evident in his voice. They approached the Titanic flagship, dwarfed by its immensity. At Williams's signal, Ace and Axiom led the strike team to the airlock. The android's eyes glowed as he interfaced with the hatch controls. 20 seconds until hull breach," Axiom reported. Ace flashed a cocky grin. "Let's crash this party." The charges detonated with a muffled thump, and they surged into the breach. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air as Norcadian guards responded to the intrusion. Axiom moved with fluid grace, each shot finding its mark with robotic precision. They fought their way deeper into the ship's bowels, Ace's alien heritage allowing him to interface with control panels, temporarily disabling security systems. The ship's layout was a maze of twisting corridors and vast chambers filled with alien technology. As they neared the reactor core, a new presence made itself known. A towering figure stepped from the shadows, energy crackling along its armor. "Vasger," Zara hissed, her face pale. The Grand Inquisitor's augmented voice boomed through the chamber. "You dare violate the sanctity of Ixion? Your deaths will be long and agonizing." Vazkir lunged forward, energy blade humming to life. Axiom met the charge, his own weapon materializing from a hidden compartment. The two engaged in a deadly dance, plasma and energy clashing in a dizzying display. While Axiom kept the warlord occupied, Ace and the others raced to arm the charges around the reactor. The ship's alarms blared, signaling their discovery. "We're out of time," Williams shouted over the comms. Axiom, locked in combat with Vazkir, executed a bold strategy. He overloaded his plasma core, the resulting explosion sending both combatants flying. The Inquisitor, smoking and sparking, retreated into the depths of the ship. As the reactor began to destabilize, Zaris's voice crackled over the comms. "Extraction team en route! Move your asses!" They sprinted for the extraction point, but Ace lagged behind, clutching his side where a stray bolt had found its mark. "Go!" he shouted, his voice strained. "I'll make sure this thing blows." Before anyone could protest, he sealed the bulkhead between them. The last they saw was Ace's determined face as he turned back towards the reactor. Zaris's shuttle screamed away from the doomed flagship, alarms blaring as the Norcadian fleet came alive around them. Behind them, the massive vessel buckled and split, secondary explosions chaining through its superstructure. As they docked with the frigate and jumped to safety, a somber quiet fell over the survivors. They had dealt the Ixion directive a crippling blow, but the cost had been steep, and as Williams gazed out at the stars, he knew their greatest challenge still lay ahead, New Hope and the terrifying power that lurked beneath its surface. The frigate lurched as it dropped out of hyperspace, the gleaming orb of New Hope filling the view screen. Williams's relief at reaching their destination evaporated as he took in the scene before them. By the stars, Zara breathed, her face ashen. The planet's atmosphere churned with angry storm systems, flashes of weapons fire visible even from orbit. Norcadian warships hung in low orbit, disgorging swarms of dropships to the surface below. "We're too late," Williams muttered, his fist clenched as he gripped the tactical display. "Zaris, get us planetside, now!" The Crixan mercenary ship screamed through the atmosphere, anti-aircraft fire peppering its shields. They touched down in New Hope's capital with a bone-jarring thud, the frigate's guns already blazing to clear a landing zone. Governor Tiberius Green met them at the spaceport, his formal attire stained with ash and worse. "Admiral Williams," he wheezed, clutching a plasma rifle. "Thank the heavens you've arrived." A deafening explosion rocked the ground, and Williams steadied the older man. "What's the situation, Governor?" Green's eyes were wild. "It's the Ixian cultists. They came out of nowhere, led by some monster in battle armor. They're tearing through our defenses like they're not even there." Williams's blood ran cold. "Vazker," he growled. A woman in scorched lab coat stumbled towards them, clutching a battered datapad. "Admiral," she gasped, "I'm Dr. Kira. I worked on Erebus. What they're after, it's worse than you can imagine." Inside the governor's bunker, Kyra's revelation hit like a hammer blow. The singularity bomb, chaos particles, the potential to unmake reality itself. "We can't let them get their hands on that kind of power," Zara insisted. Williams nodded grimly. "Agreed, but how do we stop them?" Axiom's eyes pulsed as he processed the data. "Sensors indicate the chaos particle flows are concentrated beneath the planetary crust. If we could destabilize them, we'd make the surface too volatile for the Ixian forces to operate," Williams finished. "But we'd be sacrificing the entire colony." Green's shoulders slumped. Better to lose New Hope than the entire galaxy. Do it. The plan came together with brutal efficiency. Axiom and a team of Zaris' best would infiltrate the particle nexus, planting disruptors to trigger a chain reaction. Meanwhile, Williams and Zara would coordinate evacuation efforts. As the strike team prepared to move out, a proximity alert blared. On the bunker's grainy monitors, they watched a towering figure in crackling battle armor stride through the streets, tossing aside human defenders like rag dolls. "Vazker," Zara hissed. Williams clasped Axiom's shoulder. "Be careful out there. That bastard's tougher than he looks." The android's face was impassive. "I will complete the mission, Admiral, despite the toll." What followed was a nightmare of smoke and plasma fire. Axiom's team fought their way through the chaos-racked city, Ixian cultists pressing in from all sides. They reached the Nexus, a sprawling complex of twisting pipes and pulsing energy conduits, just as Vazkir's forces converged on their position. Inside the facility, Axiom interfaced with alien machinery, his circuits straining as he uploaded the destabilization protocols. Around him, Zaris' mercenaries fought and died to buy precious seconds. On the surface, the sky began to churn and boil. Arcs of impossible energy lashed out, vaporizing entire city blocks. The evacuation became a panicked stampede as colonists clawed their way onto the last transports. Zara's voice crackled over the comms. "Williams, we've got a problem. Kira says the particles aren't just energy. They're alive, some kind of ancient cosmic horror, and we just woke it up." A bone-deep tremor shook the planet. In the distance, something vast and unknowable began to rise from the fractured earth. Williams stared at the nightmare unfolding before him, his voice barely a whisper. "What have we done?" Williams stared at the cosmic horror rising from New Hope's fractured surface, his knees going weak. The evacuation wasn't complete. Thousands of colonists remained trapped as reality itself seemed to warp around them. "Admiral," Zara's voice crackled through the comm, "we need to leave, now." With a heavy heart, Williams gave the order. The last transports lifted off, carrying as many survivors as they could. As they broke atmosphere, Williams watched New Hope crumble beneath them, consumed by impossible energies. Days later, aboard the battered remnants of humanity's fleet, Williams pored over the data from New Hope. Dr. Kira, the Erebus defector, stood beside him, her face gaunt with exhaustion. "The singularity bomb," she explained, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's worse than we imagined. The Ixion directive plans to unleash it on a galactic scale." Williams's eyebrows furrowed. "How do we stop it?" Kira's eyes darted to a holographic display of a massive Norcadian vessel. "Their flagship, Vengeance. It carries a reality-warping focusing array, the key to arming the weapon." A plan crystallized in Williams's mind. It was desperate, perhaps suicidal, but it was their only shot. "Axiom," he called to the android soldier. "I need you to lead a stealth team. Your target is Vengeance's reactor core and engineering decks." The android's eyes pulsed as he processed the information. "Understood, Admiral. What is our method of sabotage?" Williams held up a small case. "Smuggled warheads. Plant them, then get out." As Axiom assembled his team, including Kira and the Crixon mercenary Zaris, Williams turned to the fleet's tactical display. "While they infiltrate, we hit the cult's armada hard. Draw Vazkir's forces away from the flagship." The plan unfolded with brutal efficiency. Human ships engaged the Ixion fleet, weapons blazing. Under cover of the chaos, Axiom's team slipped aboard Vengeance. They fought their way through twisting alien corridors, Zaris's mercenary skills proving invaluable. In the reactor core, Kira's hands flew over unfamiliar controls, planting charges with practiced precision. Suddenly, alarms blared. "We've been made!" Zaris hissed. They retreated deeper into the ship, plasma bolts sizzling past them. At a junction, Zaris turned to face their pursuers. "Get to the array," she growled. "I'll hold them here." Before they could protest, the Crixon opened fire, buying them precious seconds. Axiom and Kira pressed on, finally breaching the focusing array chamber. The android's sensors detected a familiar energy signature moments before a crackling blade of pure energy sliced through the air. "Vazkir," Axiom intoned, his own weapon materializing. The two clashed in a furious duel, plasma and energy intertwining. Axiom's combat protocols strained to their limits as he analyzed every move, every strike. Kira worked feverishly at the array's controls, trying to disable it. A stray bolt from the duel struck a nearby console, sending cascading failures through the ship's systems. "It's launching!" Kira screamed. Axiom, seizing a momentary advantage, drove his blade deep into Vazkir's armor. The warlord stumbled back, systems sparking, but the damage was done. The focusing array hummed to life, reality itself seeming to bend around it. Alarms blared throughout the ship as the damage from Williams's assault took its toll. Kira's eyes widened in horror. "The fail-safes, they're gone. We can't stop it." Axiom's processors worked at lightning speed, calculating options. There was only one path forward. "Evacuate," he commanded Kira. "I will overload my power core. The resulting ion blast should disrupt the array's subatomic structure." Kira hesitated for a moment, then nodded. As she raced for an escape pod, Axiom interfaced directly with the ship's systems. Energy coursed through him, building to impossible levels. In a blinding flash, Axiom released everything. The focusing beam shattered, tearing Vengeance apart at the seams. A shockwave of unchecked singularity energy rippled outward, consuming everything in its path. Aboard his command ship, Williams watched in stunned silence as the Ixion armada disintegrated. Among the cosmic carnage, a single escape pod's beacon flickered. Kira, the lone survivor of the infiltration team. As the pod was recovered, Williams stared out at the devastation. They had struck a critical blow against the Ixion directive, but the cost had been immense, and deep in his bones, he knew this was just the beginning. The power they had witnessed today was beyond comprehension, if weaponized on a galactic scale. Williams shook off the thought. There would be time for contemplation later. For now, they had a war to win. Williams stared at the holographic display, his face haggard from sleepless nights. The remnants of humanity's fleet hung in the void, battered but unbroken. Kira's voice cut through the oppressive silence of the command deck. "Admiral, we've detected an anomaly on the rogue planet Antimony. It matches the energy signature of Ixion technology. Williams's eyes narrowed. "Show me!" The display flickered, revealing a toxic hellscape shrouded in roiling clouds. Buried beneath layers of interference, a pulsing energy source throbbed like a malignant heartbeat. "Their fallback point," Williams muttered. He turned to his XO. "Wake up, Axiom. We're going to need him." Hours later, the android emerged from cryostasis, his metallic frame gleaming under harsh lights. Williams briefed him on the situation, watching as Axiom's eyes flickered with rapid calculations. "Infiltration probability 18.7%, Axiom stated. "Recommend additional tactical support." Williams nodded grimly. "Already on it." The briefing room doors hissed open, admitting two figures in scarred Norcadian battle armor. The taller one, Vikax, inclined his head. "Admiral, we stand ready to atone for our people's sins." His companion, Jirani, added, "The Ixion must be stopped, whatever the cost." The plan came together with brutal efficiency. As their ships entered Antimony's turbulent atmosphere, Williams felt the deck plates vibrate beneath his feet. Beside him, Kira gripped a console, her fingers tightening. "Particle shielding online," she reported, "but it won't last long in this soup." Williams nodded. "Then we'd better move fast." The strike team deployed, Axiom taking point. Williams watched through helmet cams as they breached the outer defenses, plasma fire sizzling through toxic mists. Vikax's intel proved invaluable, guiding them through hidden access points and sensor blind spots. Suddenly, alarms blared. A massive figure in ornate battleplate strode onto the field, energy crackling around clenched fists. "Gorn," Jirani hissed. "Malicus's dog!" The Norcadian renegade charged forward, buying precious seconds for the team to advance. Williams watched in horror as Jirani fell, cut down by a searing blast of energy. "Keep moving," Williams barked, pushing aside the ache of loss. They had come too far to falter now. The inner sanctum loomed before them, a grotesque fusion of temple and war machine. As they breached the final defenses, Williams felt white-hot agony lance through his side. He stumbled, the world swimming around him. Axiom's arms supported him as they entered the heart of the complex. There, bathed in unholy light, stood a figure out of nightmare, Archon Malicus himself. The cultist's eyes blazed with madness as he raised an ancient blade crackling with dark energies. "You are too late," Malicus sneered. "The universe trembles on the precipice of unmaking. All will be reborn in my image." Williams raised his weapon, ignoring the blood seeping through his armor. "Not if I have anything to say about it." The chamber erupted in chaos. Kira raced for a bank of alien controls while Axiom engaged Malicus in a furious duel. Williams circled, searching for an opening, his tactical mind working overtime despite the haze of pain. Malicus moved with impossible speed, his blade leaving trails of unreality in its wake. Axiom fought with cold precision, but even his inhuman reflexes were pushed to the limit. "Now, Kira!" Williams shouted. The scientist slammed her palm onto an ancient sigil. The chamber shuddered as hidden defenses roared to life, bathing Malicus in crackling energy. The Archon howled in rage, momentarily staggered. Axiom seized the opportunity, lunging forward, only for Malicus's blade to pierce his chest in a spray of sparks and fluids. The android stumbled, systems failing. Williams saw his chance. He raised his sidearm, an antique plasma pistol gifted to him years ago. With a silent prayer, he squeezed the trigger. The shot struck true, catching Malicus in the throat. The cultist's eyes widened in disbelief as he crumpled to the ground, the terrible blade clattering from lifeless fingers. Silence fell, broken only by the hiss of damaged systems and Williams's ragged breathing. He limped to Axiom's side, assessing the damage with fierce dedication. "Admiral," the android's voice crackled. "Mission accomplished?" Williams managed a pained smile. "We did it, old friend. We did it." As Kira worked to stabilize Axiom and tend to Williams's wounds, the Admiral's gaze drifted to the array of monitors surrounding them. The Ixion directive had been stopped, but at a terrible cost, and as his eyes fell upon readouts of cosmic energy beyond comprehension, a chill ran down his spine. What other horrors lurked in the depths of space, waiting to be unleashed? Williams blinked away the after-images of cosmic energy readouts, his mind racing. The Ixian directive had been stopped, but at what cost? He pushed aside his doubts, focusing on the immediate future. "Kira, what's our status?" he asked, wincing as he shifted his weight. The scientist's fingers flew over a salvaged Norcadian console. "We've neutralized the primary threat, but I'm detecting residual Ixian energy signatures scattered across several sectors." Williams nodded grimly. "They're regrouping. We need to strike before they can consolidate." Days later, aboard the makeshift command center of the human fleet, Williams stood before a holographic display of a volcanic hellscape. Pyrexia, a world of fire and ash, rotated slowly before him. "Our intelligence suggests this is where the largest Ixian splinter cell has taken refuge," Kira explained, her face illuminated by the orange glow of the planet, led by a fanatic named Arvix. Williams turned to Axiom, the android's frame bearing fresh welds and patch jobs. "What's your assessment?" Axiom's eyes flickered as he processed the data. "Terrain is highly unstable. Recommend small strike teams for maximum maneuverability." The plan came together quickly. Within hours, drop pods pierced Pyrexia's turbulent atmosphere. Williams felt the heat even through his reinforced armor as they touched down on a plain of cracked obsidian. "Move out," he ordered, plasma rifle at the ready. They encountered resistance almost immediately. Ixion cultists, their armor adorned with eldritch symbols, poured from concealed bunkers, the air filled with the sizzle of energy weapons and the acrid smell of ozone. Axiom led the charge, his inhuman reflexes allowing him to dance between plasma bolts. Williams and Kira provided covering fire, their shots finding gaps in the enemy's defenses. A crackling energy field shimmered ahead, blocking their advance. "Particle shielding," Kira growled, frustration evident in her voice. Williams spotted a weakness, a fluctuation in the field's integrity. "Axiom, there!" he shouted, pointing to the vulnerability. The android understood immediately. He sprinted forward, body low, timing his leap perfectly. As he passed through the momentary gap, his fist connected with the shield generator. The barrier collapsed in a shower of sparks. With the way clear, Williams's team pushed deeper into the Ixian stronghold. They fought through winding corridors of black rock, the very walls seeming to pulse with malevolent energy. In a vast chamber, they found their prize and their greatest challenge. A missile of impossible proportions loomed before them, its surface etched with alien runes. At its base stood Arvix, a towering figure in ornate battleplate. "You're too late," the Ixian commander sneered. "The power of Pyrexia's core will fuel our vengeance." Williams's blood ran cold as he realized the stakes. This wasn't just a weapon, it was a planet killer. "Axiom, neutralize Arvix," he barked. "Kira, with me. We need to shut this thing down." The android nodded, engaging the Ixian leader in a brutal close-quarters duel. Williams and Kira raced for the missile's control systems, dodging stray energy blasts. Suddenly, the chamber shook violently. Cracks spiderwebbed across the floor, venting superheated gases. The planet itself seemed to be tearing itself apart. "We're out of time," Kira shouted over the din. "The launch sequence has begun." Williams made a split-second decision. "Get to the ship," he ordered. "I'll handle this manually." Kira hesitated, but another tremor decided for her. She sprinted for the exit as Williams turned to face the missile. His fingers flew over alien controls, fighting against unfamiliar systems and ingrained Ixian safeguards. With a bone-rattling roar, the missile ignited. Williams gritted his teeth, refusing to give up. At the last possible moment, he found the critical system, the dark plasma injectors. With a triumphant cry, he reversed the flow. The warhead streaked skyward, but Williams knew it was harmless now. He allowed himself a moment of satisfaction before reality set in. The launch silo was collapsing around him, cutting off any hope of escape. As tons of rock came crashing down, Williams closed his eyes, content in the knowledge that he had saved countless lives. Then, impossibly, he felt the familiar lurch of a rapid deployment capsule. Moments later, he punched through Perixia's ash-choked clouds, the shockwave of the base's destruction hot on his heels. From the rebel transport in orbit, Kira watched in disbelief as Williams's battered form emerged from the re-entry pod. As medical teams swarmed him, Williams managed a weary smile. "Mission accomplished," he rasped. The victory was hard-won, but the war wasn't over. As Williams recovered, reports flooded in of unrest on the Norcadian homeworld. The echoes of the Ixian conflict threatened to ignite a new powder keg, and humanity would have to decide its role in the fragile peace to come. Williams stood on the bridge of the Arcarius, his eyes fixed on the holographic display of Hecadus. The Norcadian homeworld hung like a jewel in the void, its atmosphere swirling with storms born of civil unrest. "Admiral," Kira's voice crackled over the comm, "the situation is deteriorating rapidly. War Master Akravan's forces have seized control of the planetary defense grid." Williams hardened his eyes. The echoes of the Ixian conflict had indeed ignited a new powder keg, one that threatened to consume not just the Norcadian Empire, but potentially human space as well. "Understood," he replied, his mind racing through tactical scenarios. "What's your status?" "We've secured a foothold in the capital, but we're outnumbered and outgunned. Akravan's loyalists are pushing us back block by block." The Admiral turned to his XO. "Prep the dropships. We're going in." Hours later, Williams led the vanguard of the human expeditionary force through the smoke-choked streets of Hecadus Prime. Plasma fire sizzled overhead as Norcadian rebels fought alongside human marines, pushing back against Akravan's zealots. A nearby explosion showered Williams with debris. He ducked behind a fallen statue, its ornate features now scarred by war. Beside him, Axiom's metallic frame whirred as the android processed battlefield data. "Enemy stronghold detected," Axiom reported. "Recommend flanking maneuver through the eastern quarter." Williams nodded, relaying orders through encrypted channels. As they advanced, the true scale of devastation became clear. Once grand buildings lay in ruins, their alien architecture reduced to rubble. The air itself seemed to crackle with tension and the acrid smell of burning metal. They found Kira in a makeshift command center, her face streaked with grime and commitment. "Admiral," she said, relief evident in her voice, "your timing is impeccable." Williams wasted no time on pleasantries. "What's our next move?" Kira pulled up a holographic map of the planet. "Akravan's retreating to his fortress on Pradax. If we can take him out, the Loyalists will crumble." The assault on Pradax was a nightmare of fire and twisted metal. Williams led from the front, his armor blackened by the world's sulfurous atmosphere. Axiom moved with inhuman speed, neutralizing enemy emplacements with surgical precision. They fought their way through corridors of living metal, Norcadian technology pulsing with alien energies. At last, they breached the inner sanctum, where Akravan awaited. The War Master stood tall, his battle plate adorned with the symbols of his office. "You dare interfere in Norcadian affairs?" he snarled, raising a crackling energy blade. Williams leveled his weapon. "Your war threatens us all, Akravan. It ends here." What followed was a battle of titanic proportions. Akravan fought with the fury of a cornered beast, his blade carving swaths of destruction. But the combined might of Williams, Axiom, and Kira's rebels proved too much. As defeat loomed, madness gleamed in Akravan's eyes. He hit his fist onto a control panel, triggering alarms throughout the fortress. "If I can't have Pradax," he roared, "no one will." The planet shuddered beneath their feet. Kira's eyes widened in horror. "He's destabilized the tectonic plates." "Evacuate!" Williams bellowed, urging his forces towards the waiting dropships. In the chaos of their retreat, Williams lost sight of Axiom. He scanned the burning landscape frantically, refusing to leave his oldest friend behind. Then he saw it, a lone escape pod streaking towards orbit, pursued by a cloud of molten debris. For a moment, hope surged in Williams's chest. It was snuffed out an instant later as a beam of impossible energy lanced from Akravan's position, engulfing the pod. Williams watched in mute anguish as Axiom's form seemed to unravel at the subatomic level, scattered to the cosmic winds. The shockwave from Predax's destruction rocked the Arcarius as they limped away from the dying world. On the bridge, William stood silent, his victories tasting of ash. They had won the day, but at what cost? As he gazed out at the stars, Williams knew the true test lay ahead, forging a lasting peace in a galaxy scarred by war and mistrust.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.